You were saying, your buddy's got the Morning Bagger podcast?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. He does it with like Hal Gill a little bit sometimes.
Okay. Yeah.
And Chris, I played college with him. He plays plays in Germany now. So he just is like, yeah, I just, once a week or whatever, just get people on, talk the shit. And
that clip up from TSN Trade Center where Pierre McGuire is talking about Tall Stick and Hal Gill, I think it was Darren Tatishan. That's like top 5 TSN clip of all time for me.
Those guys. And who are the Jay and Dan?
Yeah.
I can buy into Jay and Dan all day.
Oh yeah, 100%. Listen, man, let's get it right into it here then. Here, talk a bit about the mental side of hockey. Thinking back, is there a time in your career where it really clicked in your head how important the mental side of things were to being a hockey player?
Yeah, for sure. Right when I probably got to college, actually. Junior hockey, I probably, my grade 12 year, I probably would have really wished I kind of had those tools and kind of avenues to kind of go down. But, just being a 17-year-old cocky kid, I kind of just thought I knew it all the time.
Yeah.
And then going to school as like an 18-year-old freshman, I just really, I was way behind the 8 ball with a lot of really good players at school. And, I was like, what's going on here? Like everyone was saying I was going to have a, great start and things weren't going well. And, that's kind of when I really started to realize that there was a whole other side of preparation besides, just, being in shape and working hard that I really had to start focusing on and just trying to figure out what was, works best for me.
Yeah. You mentioned junior hockey. I know you played in the USHL, and I got to imagine for Canadians, they're not as common down there, of course, as they would be in the CHL, right? Walk me through a bit of your decision to go play junior hockey in the States rather than up in Canada.
Yeah. My dad was a first overall pick in the Ontario Hockey League, and then first round pick to the Rangers. And he never played a game in the NHL. So he came back home to New Brunswick and, worked a regular 9 to 5. Both my parents worked, really, really hard, just to provide for my brother and I. And kind of as I got older and hockey seemed like it would have been an opportunity to, get an education or play in the queue. Not just my dad, my uncle and all my cousins, they were like, go get an education. And, if hockey doesn't work out, at least you have something to fall back on. Just a little bit more time even to develop. They're like saying, if you're going to make it, you're going to make it. And there's no rush. So definitely, don't excuse yourself from, taking care of yourself, long-term down the road. And so I left home at 15 and went to prep school, and then played there for 2 years. And then my grade 12 year, everyone was like, hey, you got to come out here. And so I went out to Sioux Falls. I've never been in the Midwest before. Well, I've been in the Midwest, but not the prairies kind of thing. And that was it. We just, it was a whole new experience again, but I loved it down there. It was a great group of guys. And 1 year, it was one and done. I think it would have been great if I had done 2, but it was good.
You mentioned moving at 15. Did you go completely by yourself? Like, did you have a billet family down there in the States?
No, I stayed right at a prep school, so it was right at a boarding school. Yeah, gotcha. And that was an awesome experience. I always eager to go. It wasn't one of those situations where my parents kind of shit me off like some of my other classmates. They're sitting there doing class and being like, I should be at home, and I'm like, well, I want to be here. So I really enjoyed my time, and there was one proctor kind of like at university on each floor. So, there's a bunch of 15, 16, 17-year-olds kind of pretty much living in a dorm life by themselves. And, as long as you kept it between the lines, we had a pretty good time.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I didn't move out to go away for school until my master's, which I was 23 or 24 at the time. Moving away at 15 had to have been such a huge adjustment. So what were some of the biggest, life lessons that you had to learn during that time? Because you obviously have to grow up pretty quickly when you move away at 15.
I mean, they kept, I thought I was on my own, but they kept a pretty good eye on us. They put in some pretty good restrictions. We had 2-hour study hall every night. I had to do your own laundry pretty much. You had to get to meals at certain times. You had to be on time for class. And, I mean, they really just put like a structure in place for us to follow, and you either go with the flow or you pretty much don't survive. So I learned pretty quickly that this is the way everyone was headed, and I just kind of followed along. And there's some great older guys that I had at school there those first couple of years that really kind of showed me how to do things, and where the pros and cons were of everything. So it really, even going from there to junior, it was definitely easier going back to a kind of a regular high school and doing just kind of a 3 or 4 class schedule and kind of just managing my time. That was the one thing that, like, even getting into college, it was a huge bonus for me to just be comfortable to know I have to do a little bit of work each day just to be prepared and not get too be behind on work.
Yeah, a lot of the athletes I talk to, they always say that transition into college is like the toughest in their career. Not only when you look at it in terms of level of play, like comparing junior to their sport, in your case hockey, junior hockey to college hockey, but the life lessons and the personal life things that you have to learn as well, the time management, the balancing priorities, working as a team, problem solving, all that stuff, right? That comes in full force as a college athlete. Yeah,
and you just you don't even really you just don't even realize that that you're doing it, and you're kind of just maturing at that. Like, looking back now, I'm like, I definitely could have been a lot more prepared and mature than I was, but I mean, it was growing up within a group. I wasn't like, I was very lucky to be surrounded by a lot of good coaches and teammates. So you kind of did it as a group more than as an individual. So I think for me, doing it that way, it definitely helped me progress a lot quicker. And that's something I enjoy, being around people and kind of doing things as a group. So it definitely was it was a good transition. But
yeah, and your team there in North Dakota, I mean, you spent 4 years there, an absolute stacked team. So many guys wanted to play NHL and pro hockey, but looking back at the playoffs that you guys entered, you guys never really made it all the way and won the big dance, right?
No, yeah, you're pulling a knife out of my back.
I know. But just speak about, because I think it's so hard for a lot of athletes to get over that when they get into the playoffs. They get so deep like you guys did, and they lose and they don't make it all the way. It's hard for them to pick themselves back up. So speak a bit about how you pick yourself back up after a tough playoff loss, and maybe a bit about your transition through the 4 years. If you learned things along the way that helped you, by the time you were a senior, deal with these losses, or did each one really just sting as much as the last?
Yeah, we had some, I actually had some really big losses in high school. We lost in the finals and the semis of the New England Championship. So right then and there, I kind of started to, again, learn from the older guys. I remember we lost in the finals, and I was in grade 10, and the grade 12 guys were just, they were like bawling, they were so hurt that we lost. And like, for me, just seeing that, I didn't comprehend it. I was like, well, not that I was saying that right at the time, but I just didn't feel like that was my last chance. I didn't have that big desire to or that big emphasis on got to win now, we lost and it sucked, but I wasn't at that level. And then kind of as I went through it, and then, we look back all the way to my senior year in college, I was that guy, going through that loss. So there was no real way to prepare for those single elimination losses. That is a totally different experience, I think, than, going into, a best of 7 or a best of 5. I remember in junior in Sioux Falls, we were playing Des Moines, I think, in a best of 7 or whatever. And I know for a fact that my guy, I just let my guy go, and he walked in and scored. And I just came back to the bench, and I was just there was no panic, and there was no I just kind of gave the guys on the bench I screwed up, but we're all right kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I don't know if that was just because I knew we had time to kind of get back in it. And I've always kind of took that approach where if it's not a one and done, you have time to get back in it and kind of turn things back in your favor as a group. But yeah, those single elimination games, man, they're, it's like game 7. Game 7 is just do or die. And every little thing is just so magnified. And that's, I still can't figure those out, how to get a group of guys to play you still have time when really you only have those 60 minutes to get, the outcome that you want.
Yeah. I like how you mentioned how your experience in high school and bit in junior hockey prepped you not prepped you per se, but maybe gave you some more tools in your tool belt on how to deal with losses and get over it. Because that's a huge thing I preach with a lot of the younger athletes that I coach with. I tell them, like, you need to get used to failure and losing early on in your career, because the longer you delay it, the harder it will be to kind of deal with it when it first happens. So one piece of advice I always give to kids is, they only really play one sport when they're growing up, and they could excel in that sport and go like 82-0 or something, right, or 30-0. And they don't really experience losing. So I tell them, try out different sports. You learn how to lose in different ways and just learn how to lose, period.
Yeah. I mean, it's something, there's something to be said about, being a bad winner, but, being a bad loser too is something that just like, even if you want to be a part of a team, like, and just being an individual, and being a part of that group, sometimes it's tough. Like as a group, you have a tough day, and, everyone has, teams have bad nights, but when that one guy kind of takes it a little too far and takes it like that extra step of moping or body language or just kind of way they're carrying themselves, it takes the rest of the group a lot longer to recover and get back to getting focused and getting ready for the next step. Just because, I mean, they're kind of a distraction at some point.
Yeah. I mean, even though you guys didn't make it all the way your college career, you yourself had a pretty successful college career and led, I know you got drafted beforehand, but it led to a call-up during the AHL playoffs. And I really want to kind of get your mindset of being called up and you're making your pro debut during the AHL playoffs, because that's like, a pretty high pressure situation, right? Here you are throwing the fire as a 22, 23-year-old kid, whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we lost. I think we lost Thursday to Michigan, and I can remember almost every day that, like, rest of that weekend, right? Like, it was so traumatic and devastating like that. Like, we were on like a 17-0 run going into the like Final Four. So we were pretty confident, but we weren't like already raising the banner, but we really thought we had a good chance. And then we went back, and one of my classmates, he had a chance to win the Hobie on Friday. We stuck around for that, and then we headed back to Grand Forks. Everyone's parents were in town, and it was kind of, it was a good closure on my like college career that way. We got to spend a lot of good time together, and then like 4 days later, Colorado was like, "Hey, you're coming out to play in the playoffs." I was like, "Oh, geez, all right, like, better cut my hair."
Yeah.
And I went in there. I had a couple practices with the guys, and that was it. I just kind of got thrown right in the fire. I think we played Manitoba, and they had like a really big, like, good veteran team. And I was just like, I had a cousin. A couple of my cousins are from Pittsburgh, and one of them drove up, and he's always been kind of like a really good mentor for me, just in terms of hockey and in life, really. And he was like, "Hey," he's like, "you can't go in there timid. Like, this is like, you just got to approach it like you're playing another college hockey game." He's like, "Don't act afraid. Like, don't be fearless. Just like, just go at it. Like, this is playoff hockey." He's like, "This is this is what you've been doing your whole life. So just, keep doing what you're doing, and don't give the guys on the other side too much respect, because they've been, playing a bunch of pro hockey." He's like, "You'll figure it out as you go." And, I went right into the fire, and, I just tried to not to do anything too stupid.
I think such a huge point you mentioned there, though, was do what got you there, right? I think for some athletes, they may, like, when they get that big call up, they may try and do things they haven't normally done, or try and overexert themselves to impress the coach or the GM or whoever it is, right? But I really like how you said, I think such an important lesson that there's certain things that got you to that point, so just keep doing them, because that's what's worked so far.
Yeah, sorry. No problem. Yeah.
Special guest there.
The neighbor, he got in from Toronto. He's just getting his cottage ready, so he's having some water. Yeah, sorry, where were we?
I was just talking about how I really liked how you mentioned staying true to what worked.
I think even like that should just hold true with anything. I mean, you got to work on your strengths and your weaknesses, like, equally, but definitely, like, when you're trying to go into, like a situation early on and like make a first impression, I definitely tried to lean on the qualities and like just kind of the things that I was comfortable doing, my whole career. I didn't try and go out and be somebody I wasn't, and I didn't try to go out and be, someone that they wanted me to be. I think as you get higher up, they almost already understand who you are. But like when they see you a certain way, I didn't try to like change that box necessarily too quick, and just kind of buy into the role and just kind of go with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know part of your role, and it's quite prevalent if you do a YouTube search of Brad Malone, there's quite a bit of hockey fights that show up, right? I know that's part of your role as a hockey player, is getting an energy guy, the north-south game, right?
Yeah, 100%. And that was honestly, and that's the one thing though, I wanted to be Mario Lemieux when I was a kid, or Eric Ross. Like I wanted to be like a hybrid of those two.
Yeah.
And, that was kind of those were my idols growing up. So, as I got older and I started to play against better competition, I had to start to, adapt to figure out how to survive, really. Like it was, and I enjoyed it. Like there was no time where I was like, I got to go do this or do that. And then, I got into pro hockey and had to start fighting a little bit to just, if you're going to play a physical style of game, like I just, it kind of comes to you. I wasn't necessarily like squaring off with guys with like stage fighting, the fights just kind of came to me, and and then it kind of became a part of my role to stay in the lineup and stuff. And you get to that level, you're pretty much willing to do anything to stay in the lineup. And besides blocking that shot with my face, it's
exactly. I'm really interested because I've talked to a couple hockey players, and they've kind of shared their experience with their first hockey fight, their mentality of that, and how it's kind of grown over the course of their career. Maybe walk me through, if you can remember, the first fight you had in pro hockey, or whether it was in college hockey. I'm not sure when your first fight was, but just your mentality approaching that fight and how it's kind of evolved over the years.
It was in junior, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. USHL. I think, I want to say we had like a really slow start, and the year before, they won like the league title. So we had like a lot of guys coming back, and like, like a really good culture and, expectations to win. I remember we were losing at home, and I was like, I wasn't scoring, and I just like cross-checked a guy on the wing, like off of like after center ice draw. And he just like, I don't even know what happened next. He just like dropped his gloves, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, I guess I'm like this guy. I don't know. Like, I don't know who he is. I don't know where he's from. I don't know what he's all about. Like, could be a lefty, could be a righty. And I just kind of like dropped my head and swung, and that was kind of the start of it. And then, as you get older, you kind of start to fight some guys that really know what they're doing and show you how to do it correctly. And my God, does it hurt?
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I think it's really important that it's a huge, another lesson, especially for hockey players, is it's not only goals and assists that help contribute to the team win. Something like fighting or that north and south style of play doesn't necessarily show up on the stat sheet, but the energy that you get from it, the intangibles that the team picks up from something like that that's contributes to the win just as much.
Yeah, it's when you're younger, there's a huge emphasis on, who's the leading scorer, who's the best player, who's the best D-man, who's the best skater. And it's kind of all intangibles at the start. And then as you get older and you get to higher levels, you just, everyone has those intangibles, and you gotta, some guys, have world-class talent that, as hard as I could have worked, there's no way I was going to get to that level of skill. And that was just something I had to, accept. But at the same time, it wasn't going to deter me from trying to get to where I wanted to go. So I just, figured out my strengths and what I was good at, and just really kind of just drove down that path as hard as I could, and made sure people saw that I was willing to do those things on like a consistent basis. And that's one of the things that you just try and really do, is just keep doing it consistently, and people start to take notice.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's obviously paid off for you with getting numerous NHL call-ups throughout your career. But I kind of want to get a bit about your mindset of what it's like day to day for you, knowing that you can get a call-up at any moment to the NHL. Is this something that you're actively thinking about or conscious about, or do you really try and just live it day by day?
It's funny. I think it was definitely more something that I was like very obsessed with when I like early on in my career. I was watching, every one of Colorado's games. Like I was definitely like, keeping track of how people were playing and what was going on. And I think that really, it was distracting for me as a professional. Like there was things that I could control, and those things were none of it. So I think I've learned over that kind of experience that it was something that I just had to, if it happens, it happens, and just kind of, get to work. And, the best advice I could give guys that are like trying to get called up is, the best player, the guys that do it consistently are the ones that they're going to get called up. It's the NHL. There's no handouts really. So, just keep working and you can watch it and be a fan, but the more you try to analyze it and break it down and worry about it, the worse it kind of does for you as a player. I just thought as I got older, it's just something now. If it happens, it happens, and I want it to happen, but it's not something that I, sit at night and bake over.
Yeah. Is there one particular time when you've been called up that really sticks out that maybe was the most high pressure scenario, or you might have felt a bit more pressure than usual?
I think every first game you get called up, especially when it's the first time to that team. I think that's, they're all very similar in the situation, just being, the new guy in the locker room, the new call up, filling in a job or kind of coming into the lineup, and taking a guy's job that's been there the whole year. I mean, a bunch of different circumstances, but those are definitely all situations where you feel a little more pressure just because you want to, make a good impression on, the boys and the organization and the coaching staff if you're at a new club or, different things like that. So I'd say anytime you get called up for the first time with that group, you definitely have a little more, I wouldn't call it anxiousness, but definitely, like a little more nerve, to play at a high level.
Yeah. And I like how you mentioned before how it's something that you don't really have control of. And you really just got to focus on things you got control of, right? Because I think as athletes like to have as much control as they can in a situation so that they can control the outcome. But there's certain times where it's not possible. And you really just, I think one of the key indicators of a professional athlete that has a healthy mindset is they understand what they can and can't control, and they don't get hung up on things they can't control.
Yeah, and that's, it's on a move, the sun's getting up. Yeah, that's like the one thing too. It's like, and you can tell people that and be like, hey, like control what you can control. And my dad would tell me that since I could remember. It's like, what are you doing? Like, crying over spilt milk kind of thing. Like, just worry about what you can control. And then I was like, I hear you, but I'm not doing it. I don't understand. And it took me a long time to, get the right mindset that way. It didn't just click. And it was something, I mean, you really got to understand your thoughts and kind of just, trust that you're okay. Like it's natural to think that way, but man, it took me a long time to really get over and get into that kind of mode.
Yeah. There's a little game I like to play at the end of this podcast where I read sports psychology quotes, and then you guys would tell me what it means. But one quote that really sticks out when you talk about this, how, somebody tells you to do something, but you don't really know how to do it until you go through it. It's this old baseball quote, super, super old pitcher named Vernon Law. I think he's from the 30s or 40s with the Pirates, but he said, experience is a hard teacher because she gives the test first and the lesson after. And that quote just really rang a bell with me with the story you just told right there.
Yeah. No, even now, especially now being a father, that was the one thing that I'm you just don't know till you know. Watching him grow from, just a little nugget to just two. And I'm okay, he doesn't know anything. And he's got to learn all these things, and there's no timetable with it. It just, he's got to progress, at his own pace. And, people kind of want to rush to results. And, some people get there a lot faster than others, but that's the other thing too. You just can't compare yourself to anyone else because, you can't even compare yourself to your own twin, really. It's something you just in pro athletes, they want to have well, I scored 90 goals last year and so did that guy. And then, he scored 30 and I only scored 15. What happened? What's wrong with me? And it's, I think people just progress at a different pace. And as long as you trust yourself, it usually ends up to be, working out.
Yeah. You mentioned your child and you being a relatively new dad. Did that change your outlook on hockey and sports when that happened? When he was born?
Yeah, I don't know if it changed my mentality. It definitely changed. It was a crazy experience, just the whole process. And then, going through it still. Every day it's awesome. I mean, I'm like learning with him. It's been really fun, but I definitely appreciate it more now. Just how lucky I am to have done what I've done. I mean, I just it's something that I'm hoping he can just like enjoy something as much as I enjoy. Like when he's running around the backyard or like with a truck or something, he's like the happiest kid in the world. I'm like, all right, as long as you keep doing things like that to make you happy, that's like really all I care about as a parent, and that's something like I see, and I know I'm sure you talk to a lot of kids about like, playing, and there's sometimes a lot of pressure from like internally within their own home. That's something I like wish I could like tell all parents. It's like, just like let them have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they're going to get there, they're going to get there. There's enough pressure as it is, like with the game. You don't need to add it from at home. Like I get it if you need to work hard or do your homework. That's a little different than talking about scoring 50 goals or whatever. I think that's something that I wish I could not beat, but like really feed into everyone's parents' mouth. Like just calm down and let them have some fun.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I actually recorded a podcast last night with a guy in the CFL, and he's a new dad himself as well. We talked about the exact same subject, how there's some parents out there that they have an idea in their mind of what they want their child to do, and they'll force them to go through that, right? Like some parents will be like, I want my kid to be in NHL, and they'll force their kid to train 10 hours a day.
No.
And that's obviously not a good situation. And we just really talked about how it should really be up to the child what their interests are and what they want to do with their life. And then it's your role as a parent to support them.
Yeah. Like my old man always said, he's like, if you want to play piano, he's like, play piano. He's like, you want to juggle. He's like, I don't care what you do. He's like, just like work hard and have fun. And that was kind of like those two, like kind of words were like, work and fun was kind of just married to each other. So I think that's one thing too. I was really lucky is that my dad, he had an experience with the game, and his probably wasn't very good. I can't imagine. He doesn't talk about it much, but he just he probably put a ton of pressure on himself to perform. He had a brother that played 13 years in the NHL, and he went through a lot, I'm sure, just as an own individual. So when he got a turn to raise me, like I didn't have any. The only pressure I had was internal. There was no like external, and it was something I think really helped me kind of like improve, because it was only on me to kind of drive myself to get there. There was no one else telling me what to do.
Yeah, growing up in a hockey family, you mentioned your dad and his brother and some of your cousins as well. Being a younger kid and their influence on the mental side of hockey and their life lessons, was it something you were fully conscious about, or was it something that you started to kind of realize later on, how much those lessons meant? Later on. Yeah. Like I was getting so much, feedback and help and, positive feedback and just kind of direction from, that whole group. And then I kind of like, I talked to a guy from back home, kind of the same conversation we're having now, just kind of about how my path. And then I was like, I kind of like was reflecting. I was like, oh, like, yeah, like I like, I had like a great experience with my family and just like how they kind of nurtured me into just kind of like settling in and working. And it was never, I did this, you got to do this. He's just like, well, I did this and this is my experience. He's like, get to the rink early, make sure you stretch. like little, I was just like, my dad, my uncle, they played in the 70s and 80s. Like it's a whole different world now, but like it was, it was, I'm pretty grateful for that. Yeah. Yeah. There's that commercial that just popped in my head now when you mentioned different world in the 70s or 80s, where it's like Dougie Gilmore and a couple other guys, I think Paul Coffey or whatever, but they're like eating like pasta before the game in the dressing room. And then it's got like Johnny Gaudreau and like whoever in the current game, they're drinking like a spinach shake or like a pre-workout shake, whatever, before the game. It's just so interesting how hockey has evolved, not only from nutrition and physical standpoint, but I'm sure from a mental standpoint as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't even know like when sports psychology came into the game, but I don't think it was like, it wasn't very far away like from now.
Right.
And I think it's one thing that it's really helped me. Like it's something, it's a toolbox, and like it's a thought process that everyone's is different. And I really had to figure out like which avenue kind of works for me, like in terms of like rituals and pre-game routines and stuff. Like I used to be like a huge visualizer. I read like Hockey Tough, college as a class.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was like, you know, you go out to the bench and you sit around, you kind of like visualize yourself, like, you know, doing what you're going to do and what you want to do and stuff. And, you know, then I kind of got almost too far into that. And I kind of had to go back to just being natural and calm. And, you know, I mean, there's a ton of different avenues and, you know, advice that people give. I think it's just whatever works best for like each individual.
So it's a lot of trial and error. You don't know something will work until you try it. And on that note, people grow and people change as well. So as you get older and your pro career develops, certain things may change, certain things may not work anymore. It's all about figuring that stuff out, right?
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've like been in a slump and I've just like changed my tape and practice to white. Like just like, you know, maybe it's the tape, you know, and it's like, you know, guys are like, oh, look at you idiot. I'm like, well, I'm just like goofing around. But like, you know, it's just like, you know, there's all these little things that you do just to, you know, get in a different mindset. Sometimes it's just, I don't know, sometimes it's just having a different pregame meal or, you know, I don't know, having a scoop of ice cream or an extra scoop, whatever. I usually go with 3 or 4 by the end of that process. But yeah, I think it's something if I could like tell young kids is just like, hey, don't like kind of let yourself figure it out and like obviously take advice from people and like listen but you're really not going to know until like, you know, yourself, like what works, you know, you can't have someone tell you that this works for them. And just because it worked for them, I don't think it necessarily works for you, but you gotta, if you want to get better, you got to try it because I think it's something that you can really get an advantage on. And, you know, the sooner that you go through that process of figuring it out, I think, you know, the rest of the road's pretty smooth.
I think that's great advice for not only hockey athletes, but any athlete in general.
Yeah, anyone, 100%. Yeah.
Like I said, man, I have a little sports psychology quote game I like to play here. So I have 16 here, 17, but we spoiled one earlier. I'll get you pick a number between 1 and 16, and I'll read you the quote and then just reflect on it a bit, maybe what it means to you in your career.
I'll go 13.
13. This is from Babe Ruth, of course, legendary MLB player. He said, "Every strike brings me closer to the next home run."
Well, I think that would be kind of like how we were just talking about earlier, right? Like every failure kind of, you know, leads to your success. Yeah, I mean, I've had, you know, I've had a great experience in my career, but if you had this conversation with me at certain times, if my positivity would have been this high, I definitely wouldn't have been this open. I think it's just, you know, to get through the process of, you know, your path. I think you got to have some setbacks, and I think the quicker that you learn that a setback doesn't mean that you're stuck there. That's just like, you know, you're moving in that same direction, but you know, there's another challenge. I went to a hockey camp in Minnesota. It's called Minnesota Hockey Camps for, I think I've been there like 14 or 15 years now since I was like really young, and they have hurdles, and I know it's always kind of compared to that. Like it was, you know, it's just another hurdle to get over. You just kind of have to, you know, keep jumping, and sometimes you land on top of the hurdle and you bail, but you know, it's just kind of a, you know, a little bit of a metaphor. Just kind of keep up. Yeah. I mean, it's so cliche, right? Everyone's like, get knocked down, get back up again. And that's not really what I'm saying, but you definitely got to go like through trial and error and mistakes to kind of, you know, get to where you want to go. There's very few people that you ever talk to that, you know, made it, that would ever say that it was a smooth ride.
Yeah, I like how you said trial and error, because that's exactly what I was thinking, how we talked about trial and error, and like you try different strategies and workouts, whatever it is from the mental side of the game. If something doesn't work, all that means is that you're just that much closer to finding what does work. Yeah. Right? And it's not about, you can't just give up just because something didn't work. That just means that you know better what doesn't work for you, and you just know yourself a bit better.
Yeah. And that was the other thing too. Like I definitely would say that all like the, you know, different processes that I went through and stuff has definitely made me just like even a stronger person, like outside of sports, you know, and just in life. Like it's, you know, it's crazy just kind of how I've used the game to apply to real life in certain situations, you know. It's just, you know, it's a little lad gets up at like 3 a.m. and you're like, oh, like I got to get up with them, you know, I'm so tired, but it's just like that mental, like, all right, no, like you got to do this. Let's go. Like get moving. Like, it's just all those things that you kind of go through, you know, you just kind of keeps applying later on in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do one more quote here before we wrap up. You got another number between 1 and 17?
Yeah, I'll go 17. Lucky number.
17. This is another good one, a pretty popular one on the podcast here too. This is from Doc Rivers, of course, legendary NBA coach.
Yep.
He said, good players want to be coached, but great players want to be told the truth.
That kind of sounds like the little that Last Dance, Michael Jordan stuff.
Oh, yeah. What a great docu-series that was, man. I was like, I'm not a huge basketball fan as much as hockey or football, but I mean, I was glued into every episode.
Yeah, that guy was, I love that guy's passion.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I shouldn't say I loved confrontation because that's not the word, but I definitely liked being told when I wasn't going down the right path.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean I'm a great player, but I definitely wanted to listen to my coaches, and that was a strict rule at home too. Like, you got to respect your elders and respect your coach's opinions, and their boss. And I was so lucky, I guess, maybe because I just had such great coaches I couldn't tell you I had a bad experience with any of the coaches that I've had, and how long let's call it 16 years since I've left home. I've had a great experience, and all the guys that I've had have just kind of always, shot it to me straight. Like it's hard love, but the honest. I'd rather be honest and just be able to reevaluate and get better than have it be the other way, and you kind of be like, oh, good job, and then behind my back, they're like, oh, what are we gonna do with this kid?
Yeah.
So it's yeah.
No, we talked a bit about earlier how knowing your role in a hockey team, it's only possible if you put your ego to the side and you put that team first mentality. I kind of get a similar sense with that quote as well, where to be able to take the criticism, be told the truth, you can't have a huge inflated ego. You got to realize that there's things you do well, of course, but there's things that you don't do well. And the coach or whoever, the talent evaluator, is there for a reason, because they know what does and doesn't work. And it's really about taking in that criticism. Another life skill that you get through sports is learning how to deal with criticism and using that as positive motivation.
Yeah, like, I mean, I don't, like, I'm sure you get, criticized, like, for your work too, at like some level, like whether like whoever it is, like, there's always people giving you feedback, and, sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative, but you got to take what people give you and digest it and then kind of analyze it and, be like, okay, like, I see what they're saying. I don't see what they're saying, but at the same time, you can't just take it and, in one ear, out the other. That's just not, like you said, they're there for a reason. And usually that's the other thing. I'm like, God, I thought I knew everything. And I'm like, I'm still learning, like, even like in hockey, like I'm learning stuff like all the time from, new guys I play with and new coaches. And I'm just like, wow, like I don't know anything. Mm-hmm. Like it's humbling.
100%. And it's sometimes guys that they could be like their first or second year in the league, right? They themselves could have a different viewpoint or ways of looking at things that is new to you.
And then I'm like the old veteran. I'm like, I'm just trying never not to be like that old veteran that's like, no, that's not right. Like, it's my way. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. You like, you little rook. Like, no, it's not like that. Like, you want to be a part of a culture too that just like is open to, sharing new ideas and learning like with each other. All it does is like, make you better.
100%. I love that. Last thing here before I wrap up, I have a couple rapid fire questions. We'll end off on somewhat of a fun note here. First one is, I know free time is tough to come by with the newborn and the hockey season and everything, but when you have the chance to hunker down and watch some TV or a movie, what have you been putting on lately?
Oh, wow. Well, after Last Dance, we've been kind of at a standstill, but a popular one in our house was Game of Thrones for a long time.
Of course.
Yeah, we got on that bandwagon, and yeah, you know what? That's kind of it.
Yeah.
We're not really TV people anymore, and I don't know what we do. I think we just kind of talk.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're gonna pick a TV show to binge or whatever, that Game of Thrones is a pretty decent choice.
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Nice
all
one.
Day.
Nice. Yeah. Love that one. What's the? Oh yeah, that's one with Larry David, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm a huge Seinfeld guy, so obviously anything with Larry David in it, I'm going to be huge on as well.
That's something I could watch any day.
For sure. What's your favorite pizza topping?
Cheese.
Yeah, straight cheese, eh?
Well, I think, I mean, I can go just cheese, and then I guess if we're going to go into it, I'd probably say sausage and green pepper.
Nice.
I've been going with artichoke a little bit lately too. That's
okay.
Kind of,
it's a bit of a curveball. I haven't had artichoke yet on my pizza.
Yeah.
Kind of scared to try it.
No, it's good. Yeah, you got to get it baked though. You got to.
Yeah. What was your growing up? Obviously, you probably watched a ton of NHL hockey. What was your favorite jersey growing up?
My uncle played. My uncle played for the Whalers, so I've always had a huge love.
Yeah.
For those jerseys, I think they're unbelievable.
Was it the white one you liked more, or the blue one, or whatever it was?
The green one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are nice.
I found like an old starter jacket in my grandmother's closet of his, and I rocked it in middle school. I thought I was the coolest kid in the world.
Oh yeah. I mean, you pull that out with vintage clothing, is always making a comeback. You pull that out now, I'm sure you can got a couple good looks on that as well.
I don't think it fits anymore.
True. You mentioned, your dad, your uncle. I think you have some cousins that play pro hockey as well. So you have a pretty extensive hockey family. You take everybody in their primes. Who has the best shot?
I would say best or hardest? Best.
Accurate and power combined.
I would say my brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brother had a sneaky shot. We were just like shoot pucks all day, every day. Yeah. And by the time he was like 5, he was like keeping up with me, and I was 10. I was like, this kid's got a seed.
Yeah, awesome. Last question here. Who do you think would be a good guest in the podcast? Somebody that you've played with, or somebody you just know through hockey or any sport really, that has a really strong mental game that you really look up to?
Jared Nightingale. He's an assistant coach. I think he might be in Flint now, maybe, or Sarnia.
Okay.
Played with him just for a short time in Chicago. I got traded there from Hershey to the Wolves. And it was kind of my first year back in the American League after being in Carolina for a couple of years. And our coach there was Craig Berube, who was unbelievable coach.
Of course.
Talk with that guy for hours. He's beauty.
Yeah.
And so they put me in a room with Nighty. And Nighty's probably, I don't know, he probably was like his 13th or 14th year pro.
Mm-hmm.
And just like what I learned from that guy, and just like the positivity he has and the outlook he has, like he'd come to the rink every day, and I'm not over to lie. I went to the rink looking forward to like having a coffee with this guy. Like he's a great person. And I'm sure like the kids that, get to spend every day with him and like work with him as a coach, like that would be, if I was like a parent and I could send my kid to go work with someone, it'd be that guy. He's got life figured out, man.
Oh yeah. And it's funny too, how kind of life is a full circle, where you mentioned that he was a bit of your role model, your mentor. And I've read recent interviews where like Yamo, he really credited a lot of, his success in NHL to you. And it's just got to be a really cool feeling to know that like, here you are at such a young age being mentored by somebody, and you're able to repay it back to the next gen. Well, I don't want to say next generation, because you're not that old, of course, but the guys coming up.
I'm getting there. I'm getting Yeah, I think, but that's just like, that was one thing I learned in college. It's just like, the older guys take care of the younger guys, and that's just kind of the process that keeps going. Like it's kind of a link chain. That's like the one thing I loved about, even going back as an alumni to North Dakota. It's like you can talk to an alumni from like one of the 80s teams or the 90s teams, and it almost feels like we've all played together, because we all kind of came from the same culture of just, pulling on that same rope and in that same direction. And it was all just like, for the program. I think that's kind of something like, I had to put in. It's just, it's cool to kind of be in that position now in professional hockey. And I mean, Yamo was like one of my good buddies. He was like, "Oh, Brad's helped me." I'm like, you're like the best player I've ever played with. Like I did nothing to make you a better hockey player. Like I just like, I mean, we just would, shoot the breeze. And we were just buddies, and I guess he was just making me feel good. That's all he was doing.
Yeah. But it's funny still though, that sometimes those shooting the breeze conversations, that's where you get the best advice, right? Not those formal sit downs with whoever, a sports psychologist or a coach. Is those you and your buddy shooting the breeze.
Yeah. Just be like, I'm like, hey, like, we were, up late last night. I'm like, I'll make sure you have a coffee. Like,
right.
What we do here. Like, just like, or I just like, give them little digs, like just as I was chirping him, but I was also trying to tell him like, hey, do this. But I mean, God, he was fun to watch, man. That was one of the coolest things to have him go up from our club and do what he was doing. And we were like, oh, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Anyways, Brad, I appreciate you taking some time today, man. I won't keep you too much longer because I know you got some other things going on at home right now. You're at the cottage, but again,
Yeah.
appreciate your time. And one thing I always say to people is, as the reopening or these phases are opening up in Ontario, I wish nothing but health and wellness for you and your friends and your family. Everybody stay safe as the economy and society starts to open up again.
Yeah, man. Well, enjoy that sun out there. It's nice
Yeah,
out
you
here.
as well, man. I'm stuck in my basement right now.
Get out of the studio. Let's go.
I know, man. I got to get out there, get a nice tan going, but it's all good. It's there. It'll be there.